Now 2019 is over, I thought I'd have a look back at the top 5 biggest disappointments and fails of this year. And there's been a lot in terms of games, services and platforms, so let's get to it. Sitting at number 5 is Jump Force. Now, Jump Force had to be on my list for several reasons. One was that I was a fan of J-Star's Victory Versus, a big fan. The biggest fan, as Trump might say. I knew J-Stars better than anyone. Not really, that's all a joke. So when Jump Force was announced, and this time the budget seemed to be a lot bigger than that of J-Stars, I was pretty much sold just from the initial announcement trailer. I actually followed this game on my channel for a good few months up until launch, and I'm so glad I didn't waste my money on this steaming pile of garbage in the end. The only hands-on experience I had with this game before launch was at events and the private beta, and since it's been on Game Pass, I've played it through that. So first let me get what's good out of the way. The arena environments look great, the number of stage transitions and the animations supporting the transition look awesome. The special attacks, whatever you want to call them, most look really badass and really well animated. Okay, cool, that was easy. Now on to why this was a fail. First of all, the characters look like utter trash. The animation behind these characters is so jarring and uneasy, they all seem to have sticks shoved up their asses and being controlled by a puppeteer. A lot of them look really shiny and greasy, they're just horribly rendered and designed. The characters' heights are all messed up, the facial animations even more so. They went for this kind of real life aesthetic and it just doesn't really work. Then you've got your custom avatar and it just looks so out of place in every cutscene and in all of the fights. The online hub, which is integral to the game and will be your main point of action between missions, is horrible. I played the private beta back in October 2018 and we all had surveys sent to us after participating. One of the questions specifically asked about if the motion blur was too much and caused nausea. It still looks terrible. The music here as well, what the hell is this? This lobby music really does sound like some sort of 90s porno or some weird dating sim type shit. In terms of combat, which could have helped cushion some of its other flaws, falls flat here too. And as someone who enjoys arena fighters, this isn't one I could get behind. All fighters feel exactly the same, the exception being their supers and ults. Ults are only rewarded to you by taking damage. Why should a game reward you for doing badly? Not to mention the length of these games is ridiculously short. From launch up until like September, October, there was no option to rematch players or even your friends in private lobbies. Why was this not in the game from the start? Not to mention the loading times for every little thing. Some loading screens literally take you to a single piece of dialogue in a cutscene, just one bit of dialogue that you just press A or X on and then it will start loading again. What the fuck? I'm going to be making a what went wrong with this game in the not so distant future because there's a lot more to be said and in a lot more detail. Jump Force, more like the floppy puppet brigade. At number 4 I have Google Stadia. Now a lot of us knew this would be a flop, we could just tell. Google is now the latest company to get in on the video game action, hoping to steal a slice of the market share pie. It has a very long uphill battle that I doubt it will ever get over. Why do I say that? Well, 3 things: the state of their launch, their so-called unique selling proposition, and Microsoft's answer to the Stadia, which is Project xCloud, and I'll get to that in a bit. Stadia is a cloud gaming service. You can access it via your web browser, smartphone, tablet and TV. Now broadband infrastructures, like most things, are different all over the world. In the US, from what I understand, it is not uncommon to have data caps. Here in the UK, for example, it's quite rare to have a data cap. I don't even remember the last time I've signed up for broadband and it even promoted or advertised a subscription service that had a cap. So the first obstacle was that you're going to be streaming up to 4K allegedly, depending on what subscription service you buy, and having to constantly check your data usage because your data is going to be eaten away very fast. Now it launched with numerous issues, including latency problems, overheating, Yes, overheating on their tiny little devices, which Google still refuses to this day to acknowledge as a fault of their own, and lack of new titles and exclusives to attract customers. So what really does it have? On top of that, it also had shortage of devices to ship to even those who pre-ordered when it first went up for sale. The device is £120, the base subscription model is free, which provides you with up to 1080p gaming and 60 frames per second. The Pro plan is £10 a month, which includes resolutions up to 4K, monthly game downloads akin to Xbox and PlayStation, but day one it had titles that were years old at full retail price, whereas you can get the majority of their titles anywhere else for a fraction of that price. Titles such as Tomb Raider, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Destiny 2, Red Dead 2, why Google? Why even bother? Microsoft held their XO event just a month ago in November and showed off their xCloud service. But the Microsoft xCloud is everything Stadia needed to be on launch. Now Microsoft is going to be ahead of them very shortly, leaving Stadia in the dust. And whether this product joins Google's long list of discontinued drivel, we'll have to wait and see. My bet is yes. Yes, it will. At number 3, I have Fallout First. Now I know Fallout 76 was released in 2018, but as this is a game as a service and is still being supported with updates, DLC and patches, and with Bethesda this year announcing and releasing Fallout First as a subscription-based service for this game, I had to include it in this list. I mean, can you believe the balls of Bethesda to announce and release this? For the sorry state the game launched in, and from what I hear the sorry state it's still in today, to then announce this, to charge you even more money, feel the need to nickel and dime their existing player base even further. Fallout First is a subscription quote-unquote service that, at the low price of $100 a year, and this $100 service provides you with the amazing benefits of private worlds, also known as private lobbies. You might think to yourself, wait, private lobbies have been in gaming since the dawn of online play. That's because you're right. But now, thanks to Fallout First, you can pay for that privilege. You also get a scrap box, which is unlimited storage, a survival tent, which is a glorified portable fast travel point, atoms, of which you get 1,650 per month. By the way, some skin colours, yes, skin colours, are more expensive than this. You get an exclusive outfit and some exclusive icons and emotes. Now that is value for money right there. Not to mention the amount of bugs this service suffered from when it released, because of course it did. Just like the base game had issue upon issue, Bethesda didn't even bother to fix the issues with a service that is asking for even more money and just release it, just to take your damn money yet again. Why do these things keep repeating themselves? Because people support this shit. Their dirty ass old engine is horrible, and it belongs in the trash. The recent acts as a company have been insulting to their loyal fans. At number 2 is Crackdown. Blimey, I mean, talk about a downgrade. So the game was in development for at least 5 years, and this is what they come up with delay after delay after delay. It really didn't sound like development was going all that well, despite Phil Spencer saying otherwise. But after the first few years of teasing their fully destructive map that has all the processing power thanks to the cloud, to then get this. To be honest, I find this hilarious. Such an anti-climax to a game series that was only put on the map thanks to the Halo 3 beta. It looks like a 360 game, plays like a 360 game, and now with destruction isolated to multiplayer only, but the real physics removed, I would love to know what happened to this game in between every E3. Why did they feel so confident in the power of the cloud for several years, showcasing everything that it can do, destroying building upon building, which looked bloody amazing, only to then remove it and introduce Terry Crews, who by the way was most likely only hired to help sell units, knowing that they done goofed big time with their main selling point, and now they needed something else to help ship units. It's baffling that the game changed so dramatically. In 2015, going from insane levels of destructions and physics that can create domino effects that look just spectacular, to it being nowhere in sight in 2017's E3 showing. What the game industry seems to constantly struggle with is keeping expectations in check, and instead market games based on lies and misinformation that they assume will make it into the final product. I am genuinely curious as to what happened here, because the developers were very confident on the product that they were making up until a gap of 2 years between 2015 and 2017. They didn't mention where this went, what happened to it, So what about the general gameplay though? Well, it plays and looks like every other Crackdown game, except even then, it looks and feels like a downgrade from the previous two in some certain areas, like car transformations, body physics and AI. But as I mentioned, the destruction is limited to multiplayer, but it is nowhere near what it was advertised as during the first couple years. Buildings are literally just shells, no real physics engine here. You shoot them, bits fly off and very little happens. It's very underwhelming, and yeah, it's just very disappointing. Yet another Microsoft exclusive that fell apart. And at number 1, of course it is, because who didn't see this coming? It's Anthem. For those who were genuinely excited for this game, I am sorry that this is what you got. Now, I was never hyped for this game. Don't get me wrong, however, the announcement trailer looked incredible, but I've watched enough E3 demos and announcements to know when I can see and smell bullshot. Bullshot meaning something that's intentionally misleading and makes something look better than it actually is. But from the announcement, all future trailers I took with a truckload of salt, just so I wouldn't, be disappointed by my own hype. A friend of mine had a spare download license, so I didn't have to actually pay a dime, but by the time I actually went to play it, I had heard and seen the backlash it was getting, so no real surprise to me, but it was still a letdown, and much more so for gamers actually looking forward to it. The game is a repetitive, mindless looter-shooter, but with no meaningful loot or content or substance. You can't even pick up weapons in missions and switch them out, which is the complete opposite of what one of these demos BioWare showed us. There is no end game, the loading times were ridiculous, at least at launch. I don't know what it's like now. The sheer amount of menus you have to go through to get things done is ridiculous. The loot was so scarce at launch that there was a patch that led to an unintentional fix for the loot payouts, giving players more, and at that point the community was having more fun than they were since the game had launched. But BioWare then patched this accidental fix and reverted it back to how it was, saying that they're still looking at the loot drops and all these ratios, etc, etc. Now, after the lack of content, all the issues and bugs were made apparent, BioWare posted their roadmap, which, as we all should know by this point, is a developer's way of saying, hey look, don't worry, it won't suck soon, we promise. But as the time frames for these updates kept getting delayed, and BioWare weren't really updating their players as to why they're getting delayed or what's going on, as they should have been doing, they eventually just removed the roadmap entirely. This is what happens to bad live service games. Rarely does a game do it right. Warframe, a free-to-play game, is probably the best example of how to do a living and breathing game. A game developed by a studio much smaller than BioWare, no less. Seriously, what the fuck? If you haven't already and have a spare 1 to 2 hours free, I really recommend reading Jason Schreier's write-up on how Anthem got stuck in development hell and how ignorant some of the execs were being. I'll link it in the description below for those that are interested. It's such a shame as well because the game looks fantastic, and it could have been too. BioWare and EA need to sort their bloody shit out. With the flop that was Mass Effect Andromeda and now this, Dragon Age 4 has to do gangbusters and has to be good, whereas BioWare will probably join the graveyard of other studios EA have axed. There are rumours that BioWare are working on a complete overhaul of the game. Could this really bring old players back and, most importantly, new players into the game? I really have no idea. I think the damage is already done, the reputation is out the window. I can't imagine there being a big core team still on this, as I'd have thought focus would have been shifted towards what we assume is Dragon Age 4. What a fail this game was. BioWare should be ashamed of themselves, and it's disgusting that developers and publishers keep putting out this shit and charging full price. Absolutely unacceptable. There is no excuse for this. Thank you for watching. Let me know your biggest disappointments and fails in the comments below. If you would like to, you can join my Discord server. The link will be in the description down below.